Could we possibly see a reunion between the Red Sox and Eduardo Rodriguez this offseason? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin. There are actually quite a few familiar faces on the MLB free agent list this offseason. One of them being a really intriguing option for the Boston Red Sox in 2018 World Series champion Eduardo Rodriguez. But does he make any sense for the Boston Red Sox to pursue? That's what we're going to try and figure out today, because today what we are doing is we are breaking down Eduardo Rodriguez, talking about some reasons why it could be interesting for the Boston Red Sox, some reasons why it may not be as interesting for the Boston Red Sox. We're also going to be talking about what a projected contract could look like for Eduardo Rodriguez and whether or not that plays a factor into whether or not the Red Sox pursue him. And we are going to be talking about whether or not we believe that Eduardo Rodriguez makes sense for the 2024 Red Sox and beyond. But before we get into that, do me a favor, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Don't forget, we are still raising money for Movember. We are almost halfway there. If you feel inclined to donate, enter yourself in to win some free Red Seat Radio merch. Click the link in the description below. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. For those of you who may not know, Eddie or Eduardo Rodriguez or Erod, whatever nickname or name you want to call him, officially opted out of his deal, making him a free agent going into 2024 after a pretty solid 2023 campaign. During the 2023 season, he pitched in 26 games, sporting a .330 ERA with a fairly similar .366 FIP, a 1.153 WHIP, and a 1.34 ERA plus, or about 38% more productive on the mound than the average pitcher in baseball. He also had an 8.4 K per nine, which is around his career average, and the second lowest walks per nine of his entire career at 2.8. He also had a pitching run value this season of 18, which is in the 92nd percentile in all of baseball. For those of you who may not know, basically what pitching run value does is it assigns a numerical value to every pitch thrown, compares that to the average player in Major League Baseball, and gives you points for or against the pitch that you threw. Eduardo Rodriguez had a really great season run value wise. In fact, only about 8% of Major League pitchers had a better pitching run value in 2023 than Eduardo Rodriguez. This season was clearly the best season of his big league career, which came at a perfect time considering he now had the opportunity to opt out. But most of you do know what Eddie has looked like throughout his entire career, but for those of you who haven't, Eduardo Rodriguez actually spent 6 years with the Boston Red Sox before taking a deal a couple of years ago with the Detroit Tigers and pitched 2 seasons for them, totaling 8 full seasons of Major League Baseball. And in those 8 seasons, Eddie has a .403 ERA with a bit lower 3.85 FIP, a 1.292 WHIP, and a 1.12 ERA plus, or about 12% better than the average player in Major League Baseball. Throughout his career, he's been a really solid left-handed option for both the Red Sox and the Tigers, and overall has put up a above average production-wise career with both of those teams. If we're talking about a fit with the Red Sox, statistically, it could make sense for the Red Sox to explore bringing Eduardo Rodriguez back, right? The Red Sox obviously need rotational pieces, and with Eddie, you kind of know what you're going to get. He's already performed at Fenway Park. Bringing him back statistically could add a really solid left-handed option sort of in the middle of your rotation, right? Eddie's not going to be a number one and ace caliber pitcher, but his ceiling is sort of that 2-spot caliber pitcher, most likely as the number 3. Statistically, this could help the Boston Red Sox in their pursuit of being competitive in 2024. But there are other factors outside of statistics that you need to factor in when looking at signing a free agent. One of the things that stands out and could be a bit of a drawback when we're talking about the potential for Eduardo Rodriguez is the fact that he's not a guy who overall throughout his career has been known as sort of a workhorse, right? He's had decent seasons where he's made a lot of starts, but overall throughout his career, he's not a guy who's going to give you 200 plus innings every single season. In fact, looking at his career, in those 8 full seasons he spent in Major League Baseball, he only surpassed 30 starts twice and has pitched over 150 innings just 3 times. Outside of that, it's been either both under 30 starts and under 150 innings or 150 innings and below 30 starts. Very rarely did Eduardo Rodriguez throughout his career make 30 plus starts and 150 plus innings. Most of that is because of the fact that over his career, Eduardo Rodriguez has dealt with several different injuries. If you can injure it, you can pretty much guarantee Eduardo Rodriguez has had a stint with it on the IL. Things like a knee, an elbow, ribs, back, migraines. He has a heart issue as well. There are a couple of different things that over his entire 8-season career have kept him out of playing a full season in Major League Baseball. And for the most part, you can expect at least a 15-day IL from Erod, which for the Red Sox could be a major drawback, right? Over the last couple of years, injuries, especially to the rotation, have really hindered what the Red Sox were able to do during the regular season, and bringing in a guy like this who has had his injuries and has had his injuries already with the Boston Red Sox could be something the Red Sox are looking to avoid. So when you're looking at the potential fit of Eduardo Rodriguez, both sides have their various reasons, right? There's potential reasoning for Eduardo Rodriguez to be a target for the Boston Red Sox, but there's also some potential there for the Red Sox to try and avoid him at all costs unless they absolutely have to, right? It could go both ways, which makes Eduardo Rodriguez a really interesting case as a free agent target for the Red Sox this offseason. So what would a potential contract for the Red Sox to bring Eduardo Rodriguez here look like? How would that impact whether or not they should try and pursue him? And ultimately, let's try and figure out whether or not this makes sense for the Red Sox. In terms of the value of Eduardo Rodriguez's next contract, there are a couple different beliefs as to what his contract will actually look like, but they all have one thing in common. According to MLB Trade Rumors, the projected value for Eduardo Rodriguez is 4 years, $82 million, or about $20.5 million per year. According to another source in Jon Heyman, he believes that with Eduardo Rodriguez still having $49 million left on his Detroit Tigers contract if he had opted in, he believes that Eduardo Rodriguez is scheduled to double that value and put him in the $100 million contract range, which didn't specify years, so it could still be around that $20 million value. It could be more, it could be a little less, but Jon Heyman believes that he will be able to double that contract and put himself into the $100 million category. Now, the thing that these contracts both have in common is that Eduardo Rodriguez is due to have a pay raise in 2024 and beyond. If he had stayed with the Detroit Tigers, he would have been making around $15 million a year, a little bit more than that, but pretty close to that in value. Leaving the Detroit Tigers means Eduardo Rodriguez is due for a bigger payday. For the Red Sox, this contract value does sort of make sense. It may feel like a bit of an overpay for what Eduardo Rodriguez could possibly bring to the Boston Red Sox rotation, but the market is going to define his value, right? And with the market in 2024 being heavily skewed towards starting pitchers, there are about 5 or 6 guys who are going to be at the top of that list, then about 4 or 5 of those guys who are going to be in the mid tier of that list, and all of those guys are going to have a lot of teams vying for their attention. There are quite a few teams in Major League Baseball right now who are looking for frontline starters, either because they're losing starters in 24 or because they did not get the starting pitching they wanted, like the Boston Red Sox in 2023. And either way, that's going to equate to a pretty vicious starting pitching market, which means that $20 million for Eduardo Rodriguez makes sense in the current climate. Maybe on another offseason, he's not worth that value, but in 2024, where pitching is the highest commodity, it makes sense that some of these guys are going to get a big pay raise, and that includes Eduardo Rodriguez. Now, this could have an interesting impact on what the Red Sox decide to do in their pursuit of Eduardo Rodriguez, right? Because when you're looking at it, there could be 2 possible sides to this coin for the Red Sox to look at. When they're looking at the value of this contract, on one side, Eduardo Eduardo Rodriguez is a known quantity. He's been with the Boston Red Sox before. He's performed under Alex Cora, and yes, they've had their tiffs, and yes, they've had their disagreements, but overall, they respect each other. You know what you're going to get from Eduardo Rodriguez performing for the Boston Red Sox because he does have that experience. Eduardo Rodriguez could statistically improve this rotation, and when healthy, would give you really solid innings in the middle half to the upper half of this rotation, and he's someone that you know will perform at Fenway Park, which is a big bonus, right? That could be something the Red Sox are looking at, and the way the Red Sox are looking at this. But on the other side of things as well, when you're looking at the free agent market and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to spend big on a starting pitcher in 2024, the Red Sox are going to get their guy. Is Eduardo Rodriguez really a better option than some of these other guys who may cost $3-4 million more a year, but are almost guaranteed to give you more innings and possibly have a higher ceiling as well, right? When you're looking at the opportunity cost of signing Eduardo Rodriguez, that could be a bit of an issue for the Boston Red Sox. And I think money-wise, you can get more value paying even a little bit more for someone else who isn't going into their age 31 season, who hasn't had a lot of injury history, who is scheduled to make 30 plus starts a year or expected to make 30 plus starts a year and give you around the same statistics Eduardo Rodriguez does, right? There are two completely different sides of this coin, the known quantity and the unknown quality of Eduardo Rodriguez on a new deal in Boston going into his age 31 season. It sort of just depends on which way the Boston Red Sox decide to take a look at this. Now, in my opinion, I don't know if Eduardo Rodriguez is the smartest choice, but there is a scenario in my head where Eduardo Rodriguez could make sense, and that's if the Boston Red Sox really want to totally revamp this rotation, right? Instead of just going out and getting a 1 and a 2, they want this rotation to look completely different. They want at minimum 3 starting pitchers, right? Because then when you look at Eduardo Rodriguez and he's not your number 1 and you get a Yamamoto or a Nola or something like that, then you trade for a solid number 2. Eduardo Rodriguez slotting into the 3, having Bayo in the 4, and having a fight for the 5th spot in this rotation could actually be a really decent rotation going into 2024. But at the same time too, like I said, if your focus is more than likely what it's going to be, and that is getting 2 starting pitchers, in my opinion, there are better ways to allocate that money, and there are pitchers that I would prefer to get over Eduardo Rodriguez that I think could have a higher impact both on the Red Sox in 2024, but almost more importantly, throughout their entirety of their contract, right? How effective is Eduardo Rodriguez going to be at 35, 36 compared to a Jordan Montgomery, a Michael Lorenzen, a Blake Snell, an Aaron Nola, Yamamoto, right? Or even on the trade market, a Burns, a Cease, a Singer, right? A Lodolo, guys like that. Is he going to have the same effectiveness 5-6 years from now as some of those guys? I don't think so, and that's why I'm not super high on the Red Sox reuniting with Eduardo Rodriguez, but I do think it's a legitimate possibility, and there is a reason why most prediction places and most analysts and stuff like that are connecting Eduardo Rodriguez to the Boston Red Sox, because there is some reasoning there that makes sense to bring him home. But that's just my opinion, so let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think? Do you think the Red Sox should reunite with Eduardo Rodriguez? What would your contract for Erod look like? Where would he fit in with this rotation? Or are you completely out on Erod? Let me know all your thoughts on the Red Sox reuniting with Eddie Rodriguez in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys hit the like button on this video as well. Helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.